What's up guys, Bo here again, and I hope it's not getting too dark, but in this entry I want to talk to you guys about escapism, right? I've been meaning to talk on this topic for quite a long time, and the kind of roundabout thing that happens with escapism, right? And the kind of deeper implications of why we escape. So this kind of is linked to a previous video that I did recently about presence, right? And escapism is basically the opposite, like it is the kind of antithesis, I think that's the right word, for being present, right? And so basically, escapism, what is it, right? Escapism is, it's actually it's very broad, like what it can mean, right? Escapism could mean kind of traditional kind of escapist media, so like video games that I used to kind of, and I still really like, like, I won't lie, like sometimes, you know, it's good to kind of pick up the controller and play a game, like a video game, to kind of de-stress, or watch kind of like let's plays on YouTube and things like that. But so it can mean that, but it can also mean anything that you do, to kind of take yourself away from whatever you're kind of facing in reality at the present moment, right? And one popular thing that kind of started, I think, in the 90s or like the 2000s, that kind of the kind of, yeah, you know, has carried on and is very popular to this day, is kind of reality shows, you know, shows in which you kind of get a glimpse into someone's life, you know, whether it be like a celebrity or whether, you know, or like a character or something like that, right? And this also kind of applies to like dramas and like soaps and things like that. But basically, these kinds of things enable us to live vicariously through someone else, right? The ability to basically see like someone else's experiences through their eyes, you know. And I guess I said that, you know, with reality shows and things like that, but like this isn't really something that's new, you know. We've had like theatre, Shakespeare, you know, that kind of thing. We've had literature, where, you know, we read, we kind of experience someone's experience, we experience their kind of experiences, like through their narrative, through their perspective, right? So this kind of thing is very popular, and, you know, and it's cool, you know, like to be able to kind of see and experience something through someone else's eyes, through their kind of thinking, through their thought processes. That's very cool, right? But there's also a danger, right? There's a shadow side to escapism, right? And that is that we start to basically atrophy in our own lives, right? Because what escapism can potentially do to us is basically it can kind of put us in a kind of very strange state where we're experiencing something, but we're not actually kind of going through the motions, like physiologically, right? So there is a difference between kind of experiencing something, like doing something and in real life, versus kind of experiencing it, like having like a second-hand kind of experience through escapism, right? And this can become dangerous when it becomes an addiction, right? When escapism becomes an addiction, it can be very dangerous, because it can basically produce a state within us that is very kind of like split. So we have, we basically start to build an identity through the experiences that we're kind of getting through via second-hand experiences, like through, you know, media, through like other people, through like the characters that we enjoy in like our favorite shows and that kind of thing. This is weird, but anyway, my light is not really working. But yeah. So basically, maybe I can turn this on. Actually, that's slightly better. So basically, we can, so we can build an identity around basically the character that we've built, the kind of assortment of experiences that we've gained and garnered from, you know, somewhere else, and then there's us, and basically there's the tearing between these two states basically. And when we start to see the assortment of second-hand experiences as being kind of more attractive than what we experience in real life, then we start to face real problems. Like we start to, you know, really get messed up mentally, you know, and that's going to manifest in our health, like our emotional health, our physical health, our mental health. And, you know, and basically we end up with people who are kind of very dissociated in life, you know, people who are kind of like very, just very kind of placated, very kind of anesthetized, you know, like just very kind of like zombie-like people in society, and people, and this is a recipe for like depression and stuff like that. And so so that's kind of the pitfalls of escapism. And, you know, like there are positive aspects to escapism, like with anything. Like something that I should have mentioned in the previous entry is that everything is kind of done like for good and bad reasons, right? And this is something I've already kind of mentioned in previous videos. Like there's no, like, everything, so we have these two axes of perception, right? So we are able, we basically anything, like there is the thing, there is the action, there is the event, but then there are good kind of interpretations, and there are bad interpretations, right? So, and with any tool, with any kind of physical thing that we use, or that we can identify, there are basically good reasons for it and bad reasons for it existing. Basically, we can kind of frame it in a positive light or in a negative light. And with escapism, basically, it was kind of, we do it because exactly for the reason that we can experience other people's viewpoints, you know, and we can basically gain more perspective without having to go out and do it, right? And that's very convenient, right? So that is, so like, and also the kind of effects of escapism, like if we're kind of very stressed, like kind of indulging in a bit of escapism can kind of de-stress us and kind of improve our health, you know, give us like a temporary kind of health boost, right? Like, you know, kind of emotional kind of pickup. So there are positive reasons for why we do it, like, but with this comes, you know, the negatives. So like, you know, we can become dissociated with who we truly are. You know, we can basically become overly reliant on like second-hand experience over first-hand experience, and you know there are lots of implications with that. You know, so you know we can kind of lead very kind of mediocre lives because we're so kind of enamored by, you know, this other life that we're living, but it's not through us directly. So we can kind of settle for very kind of shitty like real life situations, and you know, generally it is something that's very kind of subtle. So this kind of plays into like the idea of cognitive dissonance and kind of subtlety, right? So because like the effects of escapism can be very subtle. Like on the surface, it's like, you know, I'm watching this movie, like, you know, I'm kind of chilling with my friends, or like I'm reading this book, or I'm doing this thing, like I'm doing this ritual because it makes me feel good, you know, that kind of thing, like on the surface. But the insidiousness kicks in when, like, you know, it starts to become an addiction, it starts to become a crutch, and we start to become reliant on it, such that like when that thing gets taken away from us, we can't live without it. Like we have withdrawal, right? Because we've placed an emotional dependency on that thing, right? And this entry is actually kind of equally as much about me as it is about, you know, teaching you guys this and making you aware of it. Because, like, you know, I still have escapist tendencies, you know, I still kind of check out, like, I still watch things, like, that aren't really that productive, number one, and two, in the long run, it's not really helping me. Like, it's just kind of like when you're craving, like, I don't know, KFC or something, which I'm kind of am now. Like, when you're craving KFC and then you've eaten it and then you're like, well, it was a meal, like, you know, like, and it tasted good in the moment, but, like, you know, in the long run, it's not really done me any good. It's that kind of thing. And if you're not aware of that and you kind of just go along, like, kind of in autopilot, like when you're subconsciously just doing it without really thinking about it, like, consciously, then, you know, that can become very dangerous. And that's how people develop addictions. That's how people kind of get into very kind of compromising positions in life. Is because, like, something that they developed a love for was kind of slowly killing them. And that's what I meant, you know, with when I introduced, like, the idea of cognitive dissonance and subtlety. I also mentioned this with people in life, you know, that you tend to not spot the people who manipulate you subconsciously a lot of the times. Like, you tend to kind of you tend to keep them around more than people who are kind of explicitly in your face and piss you off, like, explicitly. So in that, like, so it's very strange, and what this means, of course, is that, like, sometimes you have to trust, like, the thing that's really in your face more than the thing that is kind of a bit ambiguous, right? And that's a very kind of strange place to be, and I think that's where a lot of people fail. A lot of people can get into escapism because it feels good, you know, and addictions, you know, drugs and things like that, because it feels good, and it kind of takes the edge off of, like, you know, the pain of life, versus someone who's telling you something point blank, you know, because, and it might be good for you to hear, like, a bit of harsh advice from time to time, but you'll take the escapism any day because it feels good to you, right? It's kind of human nature. So yeah, so basically, going back to the kind of main topic that I wanted to talk about in this entry, you have to basically weigh up, you know, do I want to live my life through kind of my own means? Still recording? Yeah. Like, do I want to experience things, like, through my own kind of body? Like, do I want to go out and do things, or do I want to kind of live vicariously through someone else and kind of, like, you know, take my experiences in, like, secondhand? Like, and yeah, you know, I'm not saying that one or the other is bad. It's just that, like, you know, at some point, living vicariously through other people, through media, you know, through escapism, is going to kind of, there's going to be a backlash. Similarly to how, you know, a lot of people, like, they drink to kind of feel happy, to get into a buzz, or they take drugs, you know, that kind of thing, or they smoke, right? Yes, it works in the short term, or you know, or people who take kind of spiritual drugs, you know, to get spiritual experiences. Yes, it works in the short term, but there is a backlash. There is a trade-off. There is a deficit that kicks in after, you know, the high is worn off, right? And this is kind of representative of you know, how society generally works. It's very kind of instant gratification. It's very kind of like, you know, magic pill kind of thing, where you know, there's an instant solution, and everyone just wants, like, an instant solution. But, like, what they don't realize is, like, if they kind of take the shortcut, like, if they take the magic pill, then, like, they'll feel good in the moment and it's going to solve the problems, like, temporarily, but then what they treated was the symptom, right? And I also mentioned this analogy, like, people are kind of constantly hacking away at the leaves of the trees, like the metaphorical trees of their problems, you know, in life. And yes, they'll solve the problems temporarily, you know, they'll kill off the symptoms, but then the symptoms will come back because they didn't address the underlying problem, the underlying lifestyle habit that is contributing to, like, their problems and, you know, the circumstances that they're being met with, right? And also, the idea of integration comes into this, right? integration is the opposite, is the kind of other way of doing things, like the proper way. You know, when we do something and we basically intend, when we commit, when we have conviction towards making that thing a permanent change in our lives, you know. And and kind of direct experience is kind of in this camp, you know. Like, living vicariously through other people is convenient. Like, all of these instant gratification things, magic pill things, are convenient, but they have a trade-off, right? And they're only temporary solutions. But when we choose to commit ourselves to something, like when we go through the motions of something, so when we actually go out there, we experience the joy, we experience the hurt, we experience, like, you know, the effect that it has on us, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, then we have a richer experience, right? So this is the whole point of, like, what I'm trying to say, is that yes, we can experience life very conveniently through, like, media and, like, through other people's stories and, like, you know, that kind of thing, but the experience is very shallow, right? We don't feel, you know, what it must have felt like to have to go through that journey. So if we live our life kind of living vicariously through other things, through other people, then we're just going to live a life of shallowness, like of shallow experiences. But if we commit to if we make the decision, sorry, to, like, kind of go out there and experience things directly, then we have much richer experiences, right? We can experience, we can build a lot of depth in life, and that is what a lot of people are missing in life. There's breadth. Oh, there's so much breadth. Like, there's so much fucking shit that you can do in today's society that you couldn't fucking do, like, in, like, a society even 50 years ago, right? But with that comes with a price, right? We lose the depth that we have in life, and that comes through a commitment to kind of going, like, to taking the long route, taking the scenic route, in terms of, like, going through the motions and committing ourselves to experiencing things directly, right? So, that is my lesson for today. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next entry. Peace.